test driven development. We say it as short form TDD. So we say it as unit testing basically. So automation unit testing or unit testing automation script. Okay. So what is unit testing? Unit testing means developers testing. Unit testing means developers testing. In our .NET Core, not only .NET Core, in .NET Framework also it has been brought up. But in MVC project only it gives free of cost library. If you go for any licensed library, then you have to take the license and install it. But if you go for MVC project, either in framework or in core, both the versions it is applicable. Here we say it as MS test core, there we will say it as MS test. But yeah, concept is same. So what is that concept? Whatever you develop, imagine you developed one module today for the project. Okay. Now that module has to be tested definitely. Now you will say, sir, we are testing also. We are debugging, testing, then only you are deploying. I agree. You are testing, but you are testing manually, right? So after that only you are deploying in the test server, so that testing professionals, they can also involve for integration test. So what developer is testing called unit test. What testing team is testing, that is called integration test. Okay. Why we say unit test? Because your coding only you tested na. Unit of your code only you tested it. You have no idea that whether it will have a side effect when my friend's code also will be merged with this, right? Your friend is developing login page. You are developing forgot password page. He is developing change password page. So three people developed three things. End of the day, you are merging it together into something called GitHub repository, right? We will learn that also how to do. But when you integrate all the codes, chances there some side effect will come. You have used one class name, same class name your friend has used also. When you merge together, it is saying, why conflict? Two classes cannot be same name. So these small issues also will come during merging, and you will have the merging conflict and then merging conflict resolution. Once resolved, then it will be fine. Then you will deploy it in the test server, and then your testing team will test it. That is called integration testing. Okay. But today's topic is not about integration testing. Today's topic is about unit testing. Developer himself is testing one round. Now, as I said, we are now also testing by debugging, by putting some example data, etc. Or hard coding the data also sometimes I used to test it, isn't it? That is also unit test only. But automation unit test, why should we learn is, imagine you took 6 months to develop the project. Okay. You completed it, then you deployed it, customer is using it. After 6 months or 1 year, your customer said, what you have offered is good, we want one more new feature in it. Okay, one more new feature in it, or couple of new feature in it. Then obviously in the same project only you have to add some additional modules. So what happens when you add some additional modules, because one person is not developing whole project, right? So many people are involved in this. Chances are the person who has developed in first season, he has left the company also. No idea. So all these things, challenges may happen. That means one more guy came, he started developing, and he has no idea that by taking one class name or something, it may have conflict. Any kind of conflict can be there in the new development. It is impacting to the existing development, right? So we cannot ignore na ki bhai 10 feature has been given in January. in November I gave 2 more feature, no need to test those 10 feature, we cannot say that. Only develop new feature 2, only this 2 feature I will test it and deploy it, you cannot say that. Because new 2 module development is in the same infrastructure, same architecture, same design pattern. Who knows, this new development might have impacted the existing. So again you have to go for unit testing, then integration testing, everything from the scratch, don't you think? So because of 2 module, you retested whole 50 module, which we have given last release during January. So your development efforts in only 7 days and your testing efforts is 1 month, right? 7 to 10 days you developed new thing, but you are saying, hey, we need 1 more month, because first time when we gave the deployment, those 50 feature has taken 2 months testing. So at least 1 month we need for testing all those modules and along with the new modules. Now your customer may not have patience 1.5 months to wait for the 2 feature additional deployment. Now what is the solution for this problem? Okay, what we should do, so that the scripting should be ready, automation scripting, within 5 minutes or 10 minutes I should test all existing 50 features, so that only I will focus on the new module, 1 or 2 days extra. So 7 days for development, 3 days for testing and unit testing deployment, and integration testing. So within around 10 to 15 days, I can give the release to the production server. That should be the process, right? So nowadays, even customers are mentioning in the agreement that all your developers should have the knowledge of TDD, because we want the process of development in TDD. Then your project manager will negotiate the timeline with the customer. Ki, acha, if you are going for TDD, then imagine 6 months that project is supposed to be delivered, we will deliver it in 7 months or 6.5 months. Customer still will say agree, because that 15 days extra may be, recovering more than months in future when enhancement will come. So nowadays it is mandatory for every developer, every full stack developer, to have the TDD knowledge in their respective technology. Not only .NET Core, every technology they have started TDD, test driven development. So whatever you develop, if it is taking 10 hours, 1 more hour you spend and write the unit testing script for that in C# only. Okay. So how to do this, so that in future within 10 to 15 minutes or 1 hour maximum, we can complete the whole testing of previous features, including new features. So how to develop, how to test it using TDD. That is the topic today. And the library that we are going to use here is called MS Test. It is free of cost. Okay. No extra licensing. But similar to this MS Test, which is provided by Microsoft free, we have other libraries also available in market, commercial libraries. Okay. NUnit, XUnit, like that, various commercial libraries are available in market. So those things also can be installed. Process is 99.99% same only. Okay. Little syntax may be different. So in our course we have MS Test. One more library we have, mock test. The library name is MOQ, but the process of this is mock testing. MOCK, mock means hiding some functionality during the testing. We will see that in detail, but these 2 libraries we are going to use during our unit testing development of the automation script. Now what is the process? So why part you understood. Why should somebody learn unit testing or TDD? Now how part we have to see. How? When I will develop a MVC project, how I can include unit testing also. So let me show you in a Visual Studio. I think I have started recording. So come here. While creating the project, you can add unit testing project also. If you have not added, by chance you forgotten, already 1 month development is done, now you decided to have TDD, possible, absolutely possible. I will show you how. It is one additional project actually. We say it as unit test project. So let's go for MVC project. Should I name it as TDD using MVC? TDD underscore MVC. Test driven development in MVC environment. Not required video, guys. So here what I would do is, just like your project, okay, or default project added with MVC, just like your library project, you used to have a class library project, right, for entire architecture. Same way you go for it, just add, but it's a special type of project basically. So if you go for new project, instead of adding class library, you have to add test project. Left side, can you see MS test project is available, that also you can click, or you can click here test. Under test you can go for MS test project also. Okay, so this is the MS test project. And as I said, X unit, N unit and all available, but those are all additional license based libraries. You have to take the licensing for this. In community edition you will not get all this. So I will go for MS test because it's free of cost, and then click on next. Write it as something like whatever. Imagine your project name is feed forward. You can give it as TDD feed forward, like that. So you start with TDD just as a naming convention, and then you give the name of the project. So I will just say TDD example like this. Okay, but in real time you have to say TDD by the postfix by the name of the project. Let me, where I have saved it, in the desktop only. Okay, click on next, then click on create. Okay, so you added one extra special type of project. We set as MS test project. Okay, the moment you add it, automatically it will give you a class. You use it or not, but it will give one skeletal structure. There is something called test class, there is something called test method. First to understand test class and test method, what is it. Then you can, if you want, you can delete that class also. You can create your own class, because by default it will give unit test 1, unit test 2, unit test 3, like that. So if you want, you can rename it also, you can use it, or you delete it and create one more your own class. After all, this is a class, simply class, where some bunch of automation script you can write. We say it as TDD controller. Okay, whatever class is having automation unit testing code, that is called TDD controller or unit test controller. So what is this test class and test method? Understand it. The class that contains test methods, that means unit test methods, and test method means the method that contains 3 steps of unit testing. Okay, there are 3 steps in unit testing, I will tell you. the function or the method or function inside test class that contains all three steps of TDD, that is arrange, act and assert. Okay, there are three steps involved in the unit testing: arrange, act and assert. So let me tell you what is this arrange and assert. Little conceptual, then we will go for the coding part. So arrange means create object of that class whose coding need to be tested. Keep the object ready. Assume that in your actual project you have a controller. Actual project I am talking about, not the test project. In actual project you have a controller called home controller, for example. In the home controller you might have some functions, suppose. These all functions, suppose you want to test it. That means your class is called what? Home controller. So home controller obj equal to new home controller. That is called arrange. That means create the object of that class whom you want to test it. Somebody says, no, I don't want to test controller. I have a repository class, and that repository class I want to test because something important is there inside that repository class. Maybe entity framework, this, that, many complications there. I want to test it. It's okay. Whichever class you create the object and keep it ready. That is called arrange step. Step number 1. Okay. Step 1, arrange. Step 2 is act. What do you mean by act? Act means call the function actual function, call the business function, I will say. Okay, business function means business code development function. I am not talking about second project, first project function. Maybe controller function, maybe repository function, maybe model function, maybe utility function, maybe any function, but in the real project. So call the business function using arrange object and collect to store the data to be unit tested. Now imagine repository you are testing. Now repository, what it is doing? It is taking some input parameter, giving some output value. So those things you have to take care by calling the function. What input to be given, what output to be stored, all those things, so that you can start unit testing. For example, somebody says, hey, employee name should not have 1, 2, 3, 4. It should have only ABCD. That is called a unit test case. So to do that unit test, for matching that unit test case, you have to pass some input, you have to get some output. In that object you have to cross check whether name is available or not. You have to use some lambda expression with link queue, and then you have to check whether really that is valid or not valid, etc. So you will do all those things only after collecting the object, which object is containing the data. So the second part, act, is nothing but call the function, send the input, collect the data, store the output. If that is done, third step is assuming that in unit test project you have already collected the output and input, whatever to be tested. Now you test it. So actual testing is here assert. So using various unit test methods, okay, unit test inbuilt functions, and link queue with lambda expression, assert it, assert the data to either fail the test case or pass the test case. Now what do you mean by test case? What to be tested is called test case. Okay. Like I said, employee name should be only alphabet. That is called a test case. Employee ID should be between 1 to 100. That is a test case. Email ID should have one @ as a symbol at least. That is called a test case. So who will prepare all those test cases? Not you. Your quality team. Okay. QA team. Quality analysis team. So project manager, architect, your quality analysis head, QA head, those people will be part of the requirement discussion with the customer from the beginning itself, right? Your junior developers and all, they may not be part of requirement discussion. So unit test case as well as integration test cases will be decided by quality team. What is supposed to be, what is not supposed to be, all those things they will list it out. Imagine for integration test they are defining 100 test cases for a module, at least 10 to 12 test cases they will make for each module for unit test purpose. Because developer is not doing integration test, he is not doing in-depth testing. What he coded, whether that code is behaving properly or not, that he has to test. Okay, functionality test mostly positive test cases and functionality test. They will not put negative data here and there and spend 2 days for testing. No, 10 minutes for testing. Who? Developer. They developed in 2 days, but 10 to 15 minutes they will take for the testing. Quick test, overall functionality test. In-depth test, that is integration test, testing team will do. If any bug, they will raise to against you, whoever developed that module. Okay. So today we are learning कि भाई my test case is pass or test case is fail. Whatever test case, it is pass or fail. If fail, then we have debugging also. So after these 3 steps, I will not take it as a step 4 or something. I will take it as a note. In case test case failed, then we have facility from test class to debug even test method up to business method. Method, function, both are same. So test class will initiate one debugging environment so that you can debug it even from the only fail cases you have to debug. Pass cases, no need to debug. So it will clearly tell you the report saying that out of this many test methods, this many failed, this many passed. Only fail test method you have to debug it. And then you will come to know, acha, here some issue, that's why it is creating fail. If I will fix that, then it will be pass. So before live deployment, definitely you might have covered all the unit test cases. Not live deployment, even test server deployment also you have to deploy only after doing 1 round of unit test. Okay, you have to make sure that all the test method are green tick mark. If it is fail case, it will be a red tick mark. Okay, so let me show you how. This is the conceptual part of it. Now we'll go and implement it in a project. So let me save it as TDD underscore txt. So come here. First of all, you develop something which to be tested. है ना? So I will just quickly develop some simple workflow to be tested. Currently what I am doing, it is not unit testing. I am developing the project, you say, think it that way. After developing that module only, I will go for unit testing. Okay. So suppose I want to take some data called employee data and display on the screen or something I have already done, suppose. So quickly I will do that. I will hard code some data. You assume that you are connecting with the database also. Even single tier I am taking, you assume that it will be also applicable for multi-tier architecture. Process you just understand and implement in the project, so that in multi-tier also you will come to know how to do it. Okay. So emp name, department ID or something. Now I will have a functionality here as well. I don't have any repository class or anything. Chalo, let's prepare one repository class, not a big deal. Single tier architecture only, so it will not take much time. I will go for a new folder. So this is not part of unit testing, what I'm doing currently. It is just to have some workflow. I'm developing something which to be tested. Okay. I will name it as emp repository. Add it. I'm not preparing separate folder for interface, separate folder for repository class. In the same folder, I'm just putting it because it's a very small module. Come on. Nothing new. All these things you know already. How to create one repository class and so on and so forth. Not really connecting with the database. I'm just hard coding few things. Just run hard coded generic collection and taking 1, 2, 3 as employee ID, name as BBB, here CCC, and so on. Okay, that's it. Now we have some inbuilt process, suppose some repository, some interface, some controller, some model, all these things. We'll prepare a controller also. Why not? We'll complete the full flow. I will name it as employee emp detail controller. And here I'm just creating one object and completing the process. So for my repository, I have to create the object as reference of interface, control dot, and you are calling the function and plugging the data here, suppose. So report dot get employees, something like list of employee, some lst equal to this. Nothing new, you assume that some development is already in place. Okay, some development is already in place, suppose. Now for that development we want to write the unit testing automation script. So after this, what I am going to do, that will be new for you. So currently whatever I did, you assume that this is your existing project flow. Okay, any one of the screen you consider like that, is the registration screen or something you think that already in place, and we are just testing it. So let's create one view also. Suppose it's a list view. Employee, if by chance it will have conflict in scaffolding, you create it manually by right clicking the folder. So let me try if it is creating for me that view by scaffolding. When you have two versions, then only it may conflict. Okay, so somehow you have a flow. Okay, now like this you may have 50 flows, 50 screens, 20 controllers, 100 repository class. Totally you have developed few things and you are now going to apply the unit testing for them. So come to this, either you delete this or you rename this. Okay, so suppose I want to rename, then I will go for renaming it. I will go for something like EMP or unit test underscore EMP or EMP unit test, anything which is meaningful. Employee unit testing. For employee module unit testing, so I said EMP unit testing. Okay. Test method 1, I can name something good. I can say employee list or test EMP list, something like that. If by chance manually we are creating by deleting this class, then don't forget to put this attribute above the function name and this attribute above the class name. This is a special type of class and special type of function which is helping for unit testing. Okay. Now what you have to do, those arrange, act and assert, all three steps you have to do it here. First is arrange. Arrange says create the object of that class which is actually containing the business coding. Okay, coding to be tested. Hey guys, anybody joined from two instruments? Echo sound is coming. Can you log out from one instrument if anybody did that? Some echo sound is coming sometimes. Okay, so our class name is suppose this one. So create the object of that because I want to test that. So go to unit test class and create the object of this control dot. One thing, you have to add the DLL. Okay, so can you see second last line? It is saying if you have not yet added the DLL, click here, it will automatically add it. Just click here, it will add the DLL into unit test project. Then you go for it. Some obj equal to new employee controller. Arrange means create the object of that class which is containing the method to be tested. Okay. Then go for act. obj dot whatever the function name. We have something called index function, right? But if I'm calling this, I want to store the data, then there is something called view result, a class called view result. This is the topmost parent class of all the possible return type of your action methods. So I said view result. So you have to typecast as view result. Semicolon. It is saying null chances are there, just a warning. It's fine. You can take care it in the assert. That's why the moment you press enter, it is first thing it is asserting you is null check. That means it is assuming your data itself may be null, whatever return data. So first you do the assert of null. Is not null. Okay, what is the assert means? Asserting something means what? Cross checking something, observing something. Assert. So assert is saying there is a static function called is not null, which is inside the assert class. You call that function and check whether it is null or not null. Is not null indicates if not null, I am good. Okay. Always people confuse in this area. Whether should I say is null or is not null. Is null function says if null, then it is good. Is not null function says if not null, then it is good. So for me, if it is not null, then it is good. That means data should not be null, means is not null. Sometimes you will say data should be null. Okay, if it null, then only correct. In that case, you have to say is null. But this time, is not null is more appropriate for us. That means if not null, then it is good. Not only that, let's prepare some test cases. Based on those test cases, we will work. So test cases. Maybe currently we are preparing, but these test cases will be offered by your quality team. Okay. You can say data should not be null. That is always first test case, unless there is a special case you really want null. Then comes if model data. I'm writing little technical word for your understanding, but your quality team sentence will not be like that. Your quality team sentence will be very simple. Employee ID should be between this to this, that kind of things. But I'm saying if model, that means if your return data is model data, then check the model data should not be null. Data and model data both are two different things, remember. Okay. Data and model data both are two different things. View result object is called data. But inside view result dot model is called model data. So if model based view, then check model property whether null or not null. This is for your understanding because you are a developer. But when user will give it, he will give data should not be null. That's it. Now how to check this one? Model property data should not be null. You have to go to act now. Okay. So you know that what model data can be containing. That is list of employee. So go for it. List of employee. LST equal to result dot model. Why? Because it is a model data. So dot model will be the property which may contain the data into it. Then again it will give warning saying that hey, if you are assuming this act, then don't forget to give the assert for null check. It is reminding you. So put that null check also. So assert dot is not null of LST. That means if view result itself is null also wrong. Inside view result, inside model property, whatever list of data or object of the data came, that also null means it's a problem. Next what? Come to one more test case saying that at least one employee should be there. Chances there your model data is not null, but count is 0. Chance is there na. Imagine I will go here, somehow I will not call this, I will simply say that LST equal to this. Imagine this line is not there. You simply said LST equal to new this and you passed this list here. What will be the situation? Situation will be like list is not null, definitely, because new keyword is there means not null. Memory allocation is there. Null is not there, memory allocation is there. But count is 0 because none of the employee you collected from the repository. So that you are testing here also. That means at least one employee data should be there. So I'll revert it to our previous. That means if not null is coming, not enough. Inside that not null object, at least one employee data should be there. So how to test that? At least one employee should be there. Go here. Where is our unit testing? Here you go. Assert. So it says at least one data should be there. Have a look. You know what? As per the general unit testing steps of approaches, it will give you the intelligence. Okay. You need not to put much more brain exercise. It will give you intelligence the moment you come there by pressing enter. It is saying R equal LST count 1. But this time my R equal means what? Should be equal. It just gave an example intelligence. It is not that intelligent. Like what you are thinking it will give it. It is giving some sequence of intelligence. So it is saying equal or not equal, should be greater than, should be less than. This kind of things you check. It is giving one hint for you, right? If you are okay with this, you press tab. If you are not okay with this, you go for that whatever you want. So all static functions are available. You just put a dot, they will be displayed here. Okay. So after some experience, you will come to know which function is doing what. Now this time I want, it's not like equal to 1 is correct for me. Greater than 1 should be correct for me. Or greater than or equal to 1 should be correct for me. So if I will say equal, then one more assert I have to put greater than. Got it or not? If I will say take this assert, then one more I have to put greater than 1. Actual test case is what? Should be greater than or equal to 1. Isn't it? So see how I am doing it. I will do is true, one function is there. And here expression I will do LST count greater than or equal to 1. Makes sense? Or greater than 0 also fine. Like this, you have to pick the correct function for your test case. Whichever test case you are planning, you have to create the correct. And this expression can be anything. And operator, not operator, all or operator. It can be a big expression also. Okay. So I said is true of LST count dot greater than this. That means if list count is greater than 0, I'm good. Always you cross check like this. If not equal to null, I'm good. If not null, I'm good. If greater than 0, I'm good. So like that you cross check whether you are doing correct or wrong. Okay. If it is true, it is good for me. If it is false, then it is bad for me. Indirect meaning. So that means your test case called at least one employee should be there is done. Then what? I want none of the employee, one more test case I'm just writing for your understanding, none of employee should have name or length of name, okay, less than 5 characters suppose. That means none of the employees should have length of the name less than 5 character. Empty also not allowed, 1, 2, 3, 4 character also not allowed. Minimum 5 characters allowed for the name suppose. Okay. So you assume that if it is less than 5 character, perhaps he is not writing either full name or something. Just for example, not necessarily it is a international standard. So if this is the test case, now you help me, what should I do? Anybody? Little tricky, little think all of you and reply. It is not that straightforward. None of the employee, that means in list there are 50 employee, none of the employees should have less than 5 character of the name. That is what I was trying to understand, up to what level your brain is going. Bhai, loop through why generic collection supports lambda expression or not? So not necessarily only in entity framework. Generic collection is having some data and you apply link queue. What is there? Do that. Yes. So apply the link queue. So LST, I will say, invalid names or invalid name oriented list. Okay. Equal to LST dot where okay dot length less than 5 okay dot to list. If it is by chance less than 5, then only it will have the data. So that will be part of act. Okay, but assert part will be very straightforward. So assert assert dot is true. You will say lst this dot count. You have to say if this is 0, then I am good, isn't it? So you will say equal to 0. If by chance greater than 0, wrong. That means it should not be greater than 0. That's why I said if it is 0, then I'm good. So like that you have to think in assert, and like this you have to think in the act. Arrange is very easy, just create the object, but act and assert is the work you have to do. So whatever assert needs the data, your act will prepare it and keep it, and then your assert will observe it and say that pass or fail, like that. Chalo, some 4 test cases we made and we tested it. Let's understand the next process. So your test class is ready, test method is ready. Like that, not necessarily one module can have only one test method. You can have multiple test method also. This is about the employee detail. Imagine your controller, one more is there called department detail. So that department detail also can have another test method, no problem. Okay. So I'm just showing you the process. That's why I have taken one test method. But in real time, nothing less than 50 to 60 test method will be there in a singular 2 module. Okay. And it will say out of 50 test cases, 50 test method, which test method fail, which test method pass. So test class has test method. Each test method can have multiple assert, right? So let's go to our, first of all you build once. After your 3 steps is done, then now it is time to run the test cases. Left side, you see there is something called Test Explorer. There is something called Text Explorer. Okay. Same thing, you can get it in the test also. Under test, you will get run all test also. Here also you will get run all test. Here iconically you will get, here menu name wise you will get. Whichever it is preferable for you, you click there. So run all test cases either here or run all test cases either here. Okay. So click it. It will quickly finish because I have only one test method. Okay. Somehow it got failed. It says I am failing. Now suppose you want to debug it. Okay. You want to suppose debug it. Which test method? Test method you understood which is failed. You can see it clearly saying, this test method is getting failed, EMP unit test. But how it got failed? Let's put a breakpoint here and check why it got failed. So for why it got failed, you have something called debugging. Okay, debug. Debug all tests. To understand, there are 5-6 assert. Which assert getting failed? Which particular assert is going to fail? So F10, 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 and here you see this is pass, this is pass, this is pass, and this is fail. Check it out what it is showing. Okay, each true is fail. So count is 3. That means there are 3 names which are really not more than 5 digit or 5 character. That means you understood that my assert is failed because of invalid names. Okay. Imagine this is your first time development, not enhancement. Then obviously you have to fix it. But sometimes what will happen? When you first time deployed, that time you have fixed it and deployed. But later on something happened, some other guy came and some other condition applied, some other mistake he did and it is getting failed, chance is there. So whatever it is, whether enhancement is failing or new development is failing, you have to check where this is involved. It is involved in LST invalid names. So really is it like 5 digit less than 5 character data is there? Then you have to go and check. So you came here, there is nothing mentioned here, then you come to repository function. In repository function, you collected the data from database maybe. Then you are sure that okay, database is containing some name which is really less than 5 character. Now what I will do, I will just go and make it some 5 character at least. Okay. This is hard coded, that's why here itself I am doing. But sometimes it may be database oriented issue also. Not necessarily always coding issue. Sometimes database oriented issue. Then you have to restrict your customer. Hey, when we are uploading the data, don't upload less than 5 character name. You have to upload full name. Like that you have to give the warning to them. And existing data, something you have to do so that your data will be corrected. Either that, or if your customer is saying no, some names 3 character also allowed for us. Then you sometimes change the assert as well. That means you have to discuss with your quality team saying that hey, this assert what you have given, that is not accepted by customer, so you have to take it at least up to 3. All these things time to time your quality team will take the leading in order to validate with the customer whether all the test cases are correct or not. In fact, they might have taken one sign up from the customer by going through those test cases. Now what you did after, your assert may say change the data, your assert may say change the coding, your assert may say change anything. So this time I change the coding because it is hard coded data. If any coding changes, then only you rebuild it. If data changes, no need to rebuild it. So I just rebuild once and again I will run the things. So run it. So if you are not debugging, even though if you have put breakpoint, it will not going to disturb you. It will not stay there. It will give you as if you are pressing Ctrl F5. So can you see here? Now it says in this particular example, in this particular class, in this particular method, it took this much time. The method name is test employee list. It took 814 milliseconds total, and it is completed. Now there is something called performance testing also through unit testing. Okay, performance testing means how much time consumed by this whole workflow. Sometimes what happens, one test method may have only one assert if that assert is taking some time, like save the data into database, suppose. Now that will take of course some time. So during that time you will be advised not to use so many assets, because that particular functionality you have to observe the timeline also, how much duration it is taking. If it is taking much more duration than expected, then you have to enhance your code so that it will take little less time comparing to the previous. So that time you may not have 4 or 5 assets in one method, you will have only one asset in one method, and the total time consumed by that test method is your total time consumed by that workflow. But currently, since these are all small, even 1 second also not taking, less than 1 second it is taking. So I put some 4 to 5 assets in one place. Now assume that you want to give the performance test report also. This is called unit test report. All should be green. You have to take a screenshot of it along with your, some companies use tools as well for the, unit testing tracking, integration testing tracking, testing tool, test report tool. For example, most of company use Bugzilla. Okay, Bugzilla, Bugzilla. So that is one tool commonly used. Some people use Jira. Many tools are available in market for bug tracking. So in that bug tracking, they might have raised the test cases. Against test case, each test case you have to give the test report also, unit test report. Otherwise, simply you will say that, hey, I have tested it. Your customer will not agree, na, you have tested it and scripting is ready or not. So you have to give the screenshot of it in your, you have to upload it in your test tracking tool. So one screenshot you have to give with all green color tick mark, and one more you have to give with the performance test. Performance test means with this duration. So when you give performance test screenshot, that time I will show you what to do. Around 4 to 5 times you have to run the same function, whose performance test you are giving. Maybe there are 5 test methods. They will say only one test method is having something important which may take some extra time to do. So that test method only you have to go for performance testing. That means you have to go for observing this duration. So what you have to do, 4 to 5 times you have to run the same method, and you have to take one average timing. First time always it will be little higher side, remember, because it will compile and execute it. But after 4 or 5 times it will not again and again compile. Compile time will be once only build. So 4 to 5 times usually you have to do. In some of the testing tool, those 4 times tracking also will be there. First attempt 118 millisecond, second attempt 64 millisecond, third attempt 23 millisecond. Like that you have to put there in the Bugzilla. There will be some tool. If you are not using tool, some companies, small companies, they will not spend license for tools. They will use Excel sheet only. So in Excel sheet they might have given this kind of unit test cases for you. So against each row you will have a column called performance test, unit test. So unit test you have to say true, 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 or pass, pass, pass. None of them should be fail. And in performance test you have to give one average time of the performance. Not 5 times means 5 times. 5 times you test, but average time you give it as a performance. So 118, second time you saw 64, third time you saw 23, fourth time also you run it, see how much time it is taking. Okay, 62. then you go for all those addition of 4 to 5 times and divide by 5. So whatever your average, that you have to maintain against that column if it is Excel sheet. If it is tool, then they will have attempt wise entry also. First attempt how much time, second attempt how much time, at least for that function which your technical lead might have told you to do for unit testing as well as performance testing. If there are 20 test cases, not necessarily all test cases needs performance testing. So maximum test cases will be functional testing. Some of the test case, suppose you are clicking one button, going to save the data as well as send one email. So obviously that function should be performance test also. If it will taking sometimes 30 seconds, even your team lead will come and say that no, this is not the way. Something you do so that it will not take 30 seconds. It should be maximum completing in 2 to 3 seconds. Okay, so this kind of advice they will give, and you have to performance test and give the result to them. So coding enhancement in the coding, whatever necessary to be done, you have to do. But that is not today's topic. But today's topic is how to test and how to record it. So these are all various ways for unit testing. We have something called mock testing, but I will not continue today. Next class will continue. Any question, guys?